Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I really appreciate the opening we got, where we got the little bit in Wakanda, where we got to see like a little bit of what happened with Bucky, how he actually got broken free of the control. It turns out, Dora Milaje, in particular, was it Io, ended up being the one, ended up helping him break free of it. Like, I think, along with Shuri, they ended up helping break the mind control. And obviously she was like, don't worry, like, we're out here alone. If anything happens, I'll be the one to kind of be able to stop you. But she says all the keywords, but in that moment, like, yes, all the stuff is flashing in Bucky's head, but, he's free of it. And even her saying he's free, which I think that's the sad and ironic thing behind it, because there's a level that comes with that freedom. There's a level of complications with that freedom, because yes, he's no longer can be controlled, but the sad thing is he can no longer be controlled. But the thing is, he still has to hold all the memories of all the stuff he did when he was controlled. Yeah, that was stuff out of his control, but he still is the one that walked away with blood on his hands because of it. And so, like, obviously it's interesting to know that scene of like, oh, you're free, to obviously his therapy session where it's like, oh, like, she's like, freedom, and he's like, what's that look like? Because now that he is free, it is a thing of, well, what do I do with that? Like, I don't know. I haven't been free for so much of my life. I don't know what does freedom look like, because he's usually always been following someone's orders. Once again, it's always been one battle after another. So it was just kind of interesting to kind of see that concept, that kind of see where that kind of started, but also seeing, it's almost sad too, because it's like, oh, it's such a relieving moment, but it's also sad because where Bucky currently is, struggling with all of that. So it's not like that. Those tears of relief also carry so much with him too, like, in just the fact is what he's got to carry with him for all of his life, all the stuff that he did, which wasn't his fault, but still, once again, blood's on his hand at the end of the day. So he's talking to Io at the end of it. Even I don't know if that had come up before, that he can speak Wakandan. I don't think that had ever come up before. He actually kind of responds. To be fair, he was there for 2 years, so it makes sense. But still, the fact of the matter is, it's like, this man killed our king. He caused so much issues. Why shouldn't we take him? But for Bucky, it's like, because it's also you would work with him. It's like he's a means to an end. The fact of the matter is, they're like, fine, James White Wolf, you have 8 hours, and then we're coming for him. So, and he lets Sam as well as Zemo know, what's coming, even saying that at one point, suggesting they might as well just hand him over. Because you even have this, I think this was at this point in the episode where Sam was I think it's later on, when they're trying to gather information, talk to different people to find out, particularly because they figured if they could find out where Donya's funeral was being held, they knew that that'd be the fastest way to find Carly. And when the time came, no one was talking to them. Even the guy being like, I know who you are, but I can't trust you. I can't, because of who Sam is. You are an Avenger. You are a hero, but that means, because it's always, I think, regardless of everything, you're kind of a representative of the system. You're a fighter for that system, not against the system. So, and it's like, and I think that's such an interesting development for Sam, because Sam is the one who is the most, understanding of Carly's circumstances. It's like having lost her mom, but understanding the entire circumstances of why she's doing this whole flag smasher situation. Going as far as he doesn't agree with her methods, but he understands. And I like that every episode they kind of expound upon it more, about kind of understanding what that world without borders, what it necessarily meant. People who could not go into countries beforehand just because of other, border regulations and stuff like that. There were none of that because the world was thrown into chaos, but people were able to cross into countries and to get jobs and homes they were never able to get to before. They were welcomed with open arms, because we were all in this together. For the first time, humanity kind of came together, to rebuild, and then all of a sudden, boom, everything's back, and then suddenly we find ourselves back in this cycle of segregating ourselves, dividing ourselves, no longer being. So it's the thing of Sam can understand, trying to help people, because so many people were displaced because of this. People who had homes and jobs, it's just just so much of that was taken from them in an instant just because people had returned. So it's like, once again, the world became more accommodating to them and cast those who are okay, who had survived, who had worked to build lives in those 5 years, to have them kind of just tossed aside. And obviously that's why Donya died, because she wasn't getting the necessary treatment. Because even that dude was like, yeah, like I asked, GRC, like I asked them for like aid like 6 months ago for teachers and got none of it. So it's like they're not as helpful as they make it sound to be. Like there's so many like cracks in this system. They want us to believe in them, yet they kind of fail us at the system's failing us. It's not, the system isn't in our favor, and that's kind of what the Flag Smashers are fighting for. Once again, Sam can understand, but he doesn't agree with their methods. So for him, he still believes that Carly can be reached out, because for him, it's like, in his mind, it's like, she's still a kid. Like, it's not too late to kind of turn things around. Yes, she ended up blowing up that building, so it's like, obviously they're even threatening to do more terroristic actions, but still. There was even an interesting conversation about, obviously, the Captain America, because one of her people is like, yeah, he actually used to be a big fan of Captain America, what he represented, because for him, it's like, Captain America was an example of there being good people out there in the world, but for our Carly, it's like, yeah, but that shield is a representation of a bygone era, because this isn't the same world anymore. There's so much has changed. Things are different since the blip. You know, this is a whole new world, and, you know, what that shield symbolizes doesn't stand anymore, you know, because, and that was also the conversation of like a time where heroes, you know, there was a time where there was good and bad. It's like, there's so many shades of gray now, because now heroes have to get their hands bloody, because beforehand they try to, you know, fight for truth and justice. But now it's like, no, whatever you need to do to make things right, even if it means getting your hands bloody, that doesn't always equate to bad, because like I said, there's now this like gray area, because once again, things aren't the same anymore. There isn't just good and bad. There's complicated layers to everything and everyone, you know? So I just thought that was kind of an interesting conversation between them. And obviously Carly's trying to decide, like, you know, what she's going to do with the rest of the serums, you know, try to make, because she was even questioning, like, is it okay to make more of us out there, you know? Because I think for him, he sees a lot of Captain America. And I think that's so interesting that's so interesting. Like, while America's like trying to herald their own Captain America, that's what Carly is amongst the Flag Smashers, amongst people who believe in this cause. She is kind of their Captain America. Her symbol is just kind of like the inverse, not literally, but metaphorically speaking, the inverse of what that shield represents. So once again, it's like the shield to them represents a system that's broken, whereas the Flag Smasher symbol represents kind of rebellion and kind of fighting for those who can't fight for themselves, you know? So it's interesting, and also considering what that symbol, the shield, initially started, you know, what that symbol meant under Steve. It's so interesting just to kind of see, like, there are parallels that can be drawn by both sides, like what that symbol was, you know, when Steve had it, because that was also the big conversation too of like, there's only one Steve Rogers, you know, there's never been another. So that's why they also look at this situation as, yeah, this new Captain America, that's the thing. You're no Steve Rogers, John. That's the sucky thing, like that, you know, because there can only ever be one Steve Rogers. So you can tell that John was getting very agitated, because I think for him, it's like, it's been one failure after another, because the longer Carly's out there, the more mischief, and well, not just mischief, but death and destruction she's causing. And it looks bad on him, because it's like, you're Captain America, you need to jump into action. So he's feeling like he's failing more and more, because once again, he's got to live up to this symbol of what Captain America represents. So he's supposed to be the hero, he's supposed to stop things, but he can't. He's falling short at every stop. So that's why he's so agitated. We've got to find Carly, we got to stop her, we got to end all this. So Sam's like, let me talk to her, we can find a different way, because yes, you could go straight to violence when it comes to this Carly thing, but maybe if we can talk to her, there doesn't have to be a lot of bloodshed, because a lot of people could get caught up in the crosshairs. So, and I think that speaks volumes too. Like, Sam waited until she was done, until everyone was able to pay their respects to Donya, because he brings up the fact is that he knew where to find Carly, because like, similarly enough, like what Donya represented for the community is what his aunt represented for his community. It's like a lot of people like basically grieved for like a week, you know, because the entire community came together for that. So, and he respected her waiting, respected, you know, her loss. And he talks about, like, obviously he can understand, but for her, it's like, no, you can't understand the circumstances, you know. But I think that was a nice moment. And I think moments like that show you why Sam does deserve the shield, because I think that right there is a moment, I think, because that's very, I mean, cause, and maybe that's the parallel they're going for. Steve did the exact same thing for Bucky, because he obviously they had the common ground of them being friends. He knew what kind of man Bucky was, and he's like, no, and this wasn't who Bucky was anymore. I mean, that's who he is as a Winter Soldier. That's not who he was. He was speaking to Bucky's humanity, and you have Sam doing the same thing because there's common ground between him and Carly, and he's just trying to make her realize, like, oh, like, because for her it's like this is the only way to kind of make a change. And yes, it's not pretty, but things will have to get ugly. But it's a conversation of, so you're going to make more super soldiers. Because it's like Baron Zemo had made the whole conversation beforehand about those with the super soldier serum are supremacists. Because they are beings above humans, that what they represent. Because the super soldier serum, and for him it's like it led to Nazis, it led to Ultron, and it led to the Avengers. It's like, whoa, those are friends of ours. It's like, not the Nazis, the Avengers. But the fact is that he equates like everything like bad to it. Yes, there's always going to be give and take. Sadly, there is always going to be kind of a downside to everything. It's not always going to be good, but the Avengers did good. But for him, I mean, understandable so. Considering Zemo's personal experience, of course, he's going to see the Avengers not as a light of hope, but like a bringer of darkness. Like, he sees the super soldier serum as a means to an end, because it's just going to be these powerful beings reign supreme, ruling as gods amongst men, So for him, that's how he views it. But Sam was kind of trying to make Carly see, like, oh, like how quickly, like, oh, you just see what you did there? You're willing, you said you're like, oh, you'll kill anyone that kind of acts as a blockade. She's like, no, you try to trick me. But it's like the point is to show her that you can easily flip to that, and it's like it doesn't have to be that way. He can understand her. He just wants things not to escalate to this. But obviously John didn't want to wait around anymore, and obviously now she's like, oh, you're betraying me. So Carly manages to ultimately get away, but then leads to the whole thing of like John coming to apprehend Zemo, because before that came the conversation. Well, I'd actually skipped over it. Zemo like found Carly, shot her, but ended up smashing all the other super soldier serums except for one. John secretly picked up one without no one knowing. But I was like, now that's interesting. And this in itself actually leads to a very interesting conversation about the super soldier serum, about like who should take it and who should, like, because Zemo even asked Sam, is like, if you were given a chance, like, would you have taken it? And Sam was like, no. And he was like, good. Because basically it's like saying that they're like gods amongst people, and it's like they need to be wiped out, which Sam was like, isn't that a little hypocritical of you? You talking about wiping them out? Isn't that something like a god would say? Like, it's, you're making decisions of who gets to live and who die. And that's the thing of like, in his search to destroy what he hates, he became it. It's like the one who dictates such, it's like you're mad at like the Avengers and the super soldier serum because you think it represents supremacy, but isn't that what you're doing now? Deciding what's best for everyone, your opinion, your rule kind of outweighs it. So it's like you can see the layers of hypocrisy in that, and he recognizes that. He doesn't really say anything afterwards. But another aspect to this, well, because it plays a role in it, is obviously John's there to get Zemo, but it's like whoa. But then the Dora Milaje show up, and I love, it's like, whoa, you guys have no authority here. It's like, no, we go where the hell we want to go. Our authority goes wherever we decide to go. And then he made it, the moment, it was almost like slow motion. It's like the moment he was about to reach his hands up, I was like, oh, that's the wrong. And then they proceed to get washed. Your boy John gets washed bad. And then you had that line from him being like, they weren't even super soldiers. You're like, wow, his spirit was broken. Because it's like, at the very least beforehand, it's like, hey, they're super soldiers. Let me get my ass, like, because even at one point, Bucky tries to stop him, and he's like, oh, it's easy. Like, it must feel good to have that super soldier serum, like, coursing through your vein. Like, no one can really stop you. Like, you can kind of force your will upon anyone, like, because, you're superhuman. And you can start seeing the cracks there for John, where it's just like, wow, now, like, I feel powerless. I'm supposed to be Captain America, but I can't do anything. And it's like, they weren't even super soldiers in the kitchen. To be fair, they are well-trained warriors. Like, everyone get their ass handed to them, like to the Dora Milaje. Like it ain't nothing to be ashamed of. But I think for him, his pride was broken because it's like, I'm supposed to be Captain America. And he has that conversation with Lamar, like about, it's like, Lamar, would you have taken the serum if you had given it to him? He's like, hell yeah, because for him it's like what it represents. But even John has his reservations because it's like, but what about, the worry about what the serum will do to you? And he's like, it just amplifies what's already there. That's all. That was the basis. We learned that about that in Captain America 1. That's why Steve is kind of the anomaly, because for him it's like what was already there was a good foundation. And so becoming Captain America, the super soldier serum just amplified the big heart that he has, the good-natured person he was. But obviously not everyone can be a Steve Rogers. Not everyone is the same on the inside, And even you can tell even John's kind of worried about it. But Lamar's like, the fact is that you had 3 medals of honor. But for him, it's like, yeah, but we don't deserve medals of honor. It's just kind of like a way to kind of cover up what we did in Afghanistan. And obviously it doesn't sit well with him because he's like, even then, he's like, what we did then fell a far shoot away from right. But for him, it's like being Captain America is in a long time, it's the first time that felt right, because I think with the shield and everything, it's like, right, what the shield represent, what I can represent good. That means me being Captain America means I'm on the right side of things. Whereas like before with some of his military stuff, it's like, yeah, I kind of crossed the line. There was some darker stuff, some stuff I'm not proud of, stuff that I shouldn't be awarded or honored for. But for him, it's like, it feels, like I'm kind of on the right side of history. I feel on the right side of things. I feel like I'm a good guy. I think that in itself, I think, ended up playing a role. And I think it's just interesting insight into understanding what being Captain America means to him. How I look at it, and this might be a comparison people might not like, it kind of reminds me of Danny from Iron Fist, in particular the Netflix show. Becoming the Iron Fist for him was a means of fixing himself. He thought it fixed him, and it didn't. Like, all his trauma, it was still there. And I think the same thing applies to John. He felt like becoming Captain America, maybe it fixed things. Like, maybe it fixed something that's inside of him that might not quite be 100% there. That there might be something that might, be a little off-kilter, maybe even broken. I think he thought becoming Captain America, he thought it fixed it. It make him feel good. But it just, whether it's just it didn't all click into place, whether it's just feel like, oh, I'm constantly failing, it's just all of that. Because we never actually got to see when he actually took the serum. I guess it was just in between things. Obviously, Zemo managed to get away. Like, obviously, he was planning on doing that anyway. But then you have Carly contacting Sarah, and it led to an interesting conversation where it's like, oh yeah, but I thought your brother, I could trust him, because I'm trying to decide whether or not I should kill your brother or not. And it's like, he was working with Captain America for or with Captain America. And Sarah's like, no, my brother isn't. Like, it's just like, oh, like, that is your Captain America. She's like, I didn't choose him. It's like, but that's your country's. It's like, my country doesn't care. America doesn't care about my life, like her circumstances, what she's struggling through. Like, we saw that already. Like, she's like, I already know how America feels about me, so why the hell would I care about its mascot? And I think that's so fascinating because it's like, and that's the sad thing. Like, Captain America shouldn't be viewed as a mascot. Like, that's what it's supposed to be. Like, oh, I'm of the people, for the people. Steve always had that thing about him. Once again, that's where he started off as. He was a propaganda piece. So that element is very similar between him and John in that regard. But even at one point having to sign an autograph and stuff like that. It's like, once again, the celebrity aspect is so interesting. Like, we've seen that played up a little bit, in particular in Age of Ultron. Like, near the beginning parts, you definitely saw the more celebrity angles to that superheroism. Obviously, like, you get it way more with Tony. Tony kind of leans into it. Rhodey to a certain extent as well, but nevertheless, Sam, Sarah gets in contact with Sam, and he's like, I promise you, I never let anything happen to you or the boys, so, all right, I'm going to meet with Carly. But even, when he confronts her, because obviously Bucky's like, I'm not going to let you go alone, and Sam's like, this is really what we're going to do. She's like, I was never going to threaten. I just needed to kind of get to know you better, to understand you better, because for her, she actually wants Sam to join her, because for her, it's like the only way they can like brighten his cause. It's like she doesn't want to kill Sam. The person she wants to kill is John, killing Captain America, killing the symbol that the world is kind of rallying behind to a certain extent, kind of what the system she's fighting against is rallying behind. Obviously, the rest of them are going after John and Battlestar even kidnapping Lamar. And like I said, at some point, I guess John just like decided, bump it, and he just takes his serum and kind of starts wrecking shop later on. But even when Sam catches up to him later on, it's like, what did you do? And he was like, they got Lamar. So obviously seeing Bucky, a new souped up John, and Sam all kind of taking out some of these flag smashers, and in the process, Carly's trying to kill John, but Lamar got in the way and ends up getting killed by her. And in that moment, it makes him snap and in that moment, Carly took off the mask, because it's like, I think for her, it like, yes, she was willing to kill someone, but like, it's also like, I didn't mean to do that. It's also like, because I think maybe in her mind she had justified it by being like, I'm killing one person in this moment. Yes, those other people, they weren't innocent. They were guilty because they were part of... Because we had found out from the explosion, what was it, like a last episode, like 11 people were hurt and 3 were dead. But for her, it's like, there's no innocent people in this because they are willing participants in this system that's kind of failed and hurting so many people. And in that... and just in that moment... I like I said, I just think it hit her because she was like, I wasn't trying to, because she had no beef with Lamar. It's just a situation of I need to get rid of John. I need to get rid of Captain America. And in that moment, he was pissed, like flying out the window, landing on a car, chasing after that one dude, and brutally murdering him in public in front of everybody, to the point like stabbing and bashing him to the point that the shield is covered in blood at the bottom. And then there's just some people around looking at him. He just has his shield on blood. Obviously, once again, that's not a Steve Rogers move. Once again, that darkness that was there inside of him just simply got amplified. I mean, I get it. It's like your friend was killed in front of you. Like, he died protecting you, And because that's why he took this serum, because it was like, right, like all the lives we could have saved during that operation where, where they got the 3, or at least where John got the 3 Medals of Honor. It's like, imagine what we could have done, the lives we could have saved with the super soldier serum. But for him in that moment, it's like, even with the super soldier serum, I still lost someone. My friend, my partner is gone. And he was just so mad. It's just like, he wanted to kill Carly, but that guy was right in front of him. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see where they go with that next episode, because the U.S. is going to have to respond, because it's like, yeah, you're not only in a different country, but also like, it's not just the U.S. that has to respond, it's the GRC, because he's a representative of them. And it's like, ooh, so we're going to take the shield away from you. You're not going to be Captain America right now, because this is honestly, it's going to turn into a PR nightmare, because it's like, yes, there was bad press about Steve Rogers. Let's not forget the whole Hannibal Buress bit. Isn't he a war criminal? As those like Captain America videos are playing in Homecoming, that whole bit. So there's that element to things, but it's like, it's not going to play out well. Like, it's definitely, it makes me wonder, is that how Sam and Bucky eventually get the shield back, or is it like the government takes it back, but they decide like, wait, you're going to do this, we're going to take the shield and show you what it really represents, and allow it to be the beacon of hope, the beacon of courage that it's always been, not to be used and stained in that manner. So maybe that's going to be where this all kind of plays out. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where everything kind of goes from here. Once again, like, Carly's got like her few soldiers left. Zemo's in the wind. Dora Milaje are gunning for him as well. There's also the power broker situation, because for Carly, it's like she'll deal with John because they're fighting wars on multiple fronts. Like, let's take care of John, then we'll deal with the power broker, which now it kind of makes me think Sharon isn't the power broker. What I'd heard last episode, I forgot what I was watching. It might have been Fat Man Beyond. I think it was Mark that was kind of suggesting it might actually be Zemo. This might be like that long play of a con, that it might be him, that he's actually the power broker, but I don't know. It might be someone we don't know. It might not be someone like, when they pop up, we're like, unless you're probably a comic book person who's well-versed. Because I think Mark and Kevin were bringing up some names last Fat Man Beyond, and they were talking about that aspect of like who it could be. Because I didn't know this. Madripoor is actually kind of a very like heavily tied to mutant storylines they were talking about. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Not necessarily saying that it's going to become the hotbed for mutants, but I mean, you never know. It could. Yeah, we're seeing it now, but it doesn't mean like later on down the road when mutants, it's kind of criminal city right now, but maybe it becomes that halfway point for like almost like a halfway home for like criminals as well as mutants later on. That could be the aspect, because obviously like the power broker's kind of flipping Madripoor upside down just because of this whole well, his scientist is dead, like his golden goose, as Sharon says, because now the formula for the super soldier serum potentially died with him. I'd assume Zemo knows it on some level. He'd never make it, but there was also a part of my brain for a second that was wondering as he was looking, I was like, is Zemo going to take it? Become what you hate just so you can destroy it all? Like, I was wondering if that was going to kind of be the thing. That's what I was wondering. Like I said, it's kind of ironic because in his pursuit to destroy them, he kind of became the supremacist monster that he kind of claims super soldiers to be and the Avengers to be. I just think that's a sad and tragic irony behind it all. Once again, fighting, trying to destroy the thing, and in the process becoming the very thing you hate. But regardless, like I said, I went on a huge tangent there. But it was just a lot of interesting things to kind of keep in mind. I'm really curious to see where this all takes us next episode. Dude, we only got 2 episodes left. That's so crazy because it feels so weird. I guess it's because like I'm so used to like obviously Marvel shows being like, well, with the exception of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which most of its seasons for like 20-ish episodes. 22, 23, something of that nature. Like most are like 10 to 13-ish. With the exception of obviously WandaVision being 9, this being 6. It feels weird for it to be that short. But I'm curious to see where everything takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.